we'll just jump right in here. And if we'll work our way toward it, but if you want to find Genesis chapter 2, we'll try to get over there here in just a few minutes. But I wanted to just start out by putting this on the board. This is, we'll be working with these two circles or whatever, two. Two in Hebrew is the Beth or Veth, B or V. If that's how it's pronounced, it's called the first double. In Hebrew, you have 7 doubles. That means that you can say the word 2 different ways, and so it can be substituted in the alphabet for 2 different characters. Like the Beth can be substituted for our B, as in boy, or for our V, as in very. So it can be both ways, Beth or Veth. So represents the first set of doubles, number 2. And that's what, we were talking about earlier. I talked about Pythagoras. All even numbers, and according to Pythagoras, were numbers of the flesh, or they were no good. So he didn't all odd numbers were numbers of the spirit, so they were all good. 1, 3, 5, 7, etc. Those were numbers that were divine and, quote, holy, if there was such a thing. But anyway, so number 2, the dualities. So, you think about duality, and you think in your lower nature, your upper nature, your ego self, and your divine self, etc. So there has to be something to bring the 2 to 1, right? I mean, and that's there is a phrase that's used in all ancient spiritual material, and that phrase is called the great work. Generally, every time you see it, if you're reading Kabbalistic material or any kind of ancient spiritual material, the great work will always be capitalized, G and W, for great work. And what the great work is the work that's independently done by every human being for themselves, in themselves, and through themselves, and no one else and nothing else can do it for you, period. It's like Paul said, work out your own salvation. It can't be done any other way. And that's what the personal journey is all about. In any spiritual tradition, it doesn't matter what it is. Sad to say, Christianity got way off that track. It started out that way. For the first 600-800 years of, quote, Christianity, started 300-350 BC. By 300 to 500 Common Era CE, the Catholic Church had formed and it had taken it way off, and then began to destroy anything and everything that looked like what would be called pure or true Christianity. So what we have today in Christianity mostly is the downshotting of the Catholic Church, and we don't know that. Mainly because we just haven't been taught, and that's we've been taught the opposite, and we believe the opposite to be the truth. So these are I call these the 2 powers, and by calling them the 2 powers, here's how I'm going to look at them. And I call this the power of the male, and I call this the power of the female. And by saying the power of the male, I am not talking about sex. I'm talking about every human being is androgynous. So every human being is powered by the power of the male and the female. Or I could just simply say the power of positive and negative. Okay? It could say it either way. There's a lot of different ways it can be said. You could say the power of good and evil. It would be saying the same thing. I could say it this way: the power of the sun and the moon. And when I say these, all of you should realize and recognize, I pray that you would hear, that when I say the sun is always masculine energy. And when I say the moon is always what? Feminine energy. Well, aren't we all affected by the sun and the moon, whether we are sexually a man or a woman? So we really get all this stuff confused, and we really go crazy when we read the first 3 chapters of Genesis with this male-female thing. Because when you're reading the first 3 chapters of Genesis, male-female, we're not talking about sexuality. We're talking about humanality. And every human is made up of male and female, sun and moon, positive and negative. Every one of us. So, I'm not trying to make you men into women, because I can't, because God did. You already are. You already have that feminine, masculine power and energy. It works inside us, and we don't recognize it, we don't know it. And a lot of the reason for that is because we have been so pulled off the path. However, these two energies, and you can see this in your car. Just raise the hood and find your battery. And how many batteries do you have? Now, I'm not talking about a diesel truck, but I'm talking about a regular car. How many batteries do you have under the hood of your car? One battery. But how many sides does that one battery have? Two. It has a positive and negative, does it not? But yet it's still one. And so what happens with these symbols, and these are just symbols. These circles are symbols. I could say it this way. These circles are pictures. And if you were to take a picture out and show me that picture of your family, and you said, this is my family, I would say, no, that's a picture of your family. That is not real. Yes, it's a real picture. It's a real symbol, but it's not your family. That's our great conundrum, and that's our problem we have when we open this book of pictures up called the Bible and call it literal and real. It's not. It's a book of symbols, signs, pictures, allegories. None of them are literal, none of them are historical, and none of them are really meant to be taken real as in real. They are pictures, they're symbols. The story of what we call man and woman is a picture. It's a story. It's an allegory. So, same thing's true with the characters. And that's hard to get a, quote, Christian to comprehend and understand, because it's been so drilled and ingrained in their psyche that they think, oh God, yeah, that's really real. That really happened. And they don't make sense, and you know they don't make sense. But yet, we've been taught to take them real and take them literal. So to balance these powers, like for instance, your battery represents the power that's in your vehicle. It's the power that engages another power of your vehicle, called your motor. It engages that. And this one battery has two poles, but that one has to bring it into harmony or into balance. And so what I've been talking about actually for the last several weeks is the balance of the powers, to balance the powers. In other words, if we don't balance the power out, if we go extreme one way, then we're messed up, or we're lost, or we're doing whatever, or the other way. I mean, it doesn't matter. We have to come back to balance. That's how we walk, that's how we carry on, that's how we do everything that we do. So I want to read you some things that I wrote. I wrote this just a few days ago. And some of this, I did some research on it just because I wanted to be sure that I had this down right. Everything that has been, is, or will be comes from the same place. Think about it. Everything that is, everything that has been, is, or will be, it comes from the same place. And that place is space. Now you could say God. That's okay, because that's the same thing. It's the same word. Like for instance, everything between you and me right now is space. You can't see it, can't feel it, can't hear it, but it's there. I could say that's God. The same thing. Space. Space is so vast that we in humanity cannot comprehend it. It can also be so small that we in humanity cannot figure it out. It holds millions, even billions and trillions of stars and galaxies, and yet it is in the smallest thing that we can imagine. I'm talking about space. See, when you look out into space, outer spaces, you can see that space holds everything I'm just talking about. But you can reverse that and look into the smallest thing that we can find, which I'm going to tell you what that is. We can look into the smallest thing that we can imagine, and we call that a cell or an atom. And so I wanted to A-T-O-M, an atom. That's where the word A-D-A-M comes from. The word in the King James Bible, Adam, A-D-A-M, which actually represents the cell that builds humanity. Humanity, that's both male and female. Not talking about the sexes, but I'm talking about every human being, male and female, woman and man. It doesn't matter. So, the smallest thing that we can imagine, in other words, atom. It is the pure potential of all that was, all that is, and all that will be, and yet all that was, is, or ever will be goes back into this same space from which it came. It does. So as the body actually deteriorates, the gases that have kept the body and everything else that's kept the body, the breath and everything that kept it alive, went right back into the unseen space. Or you can call it God. That's the same thing. Science used to think that the atom, A-T-O-M, that the atom was the smallest thing. Then it was split, and they found that the atom, it, was made up of three things. Three things. Just you and I are. So they found out that it was made up of three things: the protons, the neutrons, and the electrons. So they said, okay. Then they began to try to split these down, and they discovered quartz. They haven't got anything smaller than that, but they found that even there were three quartz which make up everything. Science has not found anything smaller than the quartz or the electron. And so I went on a lot of research trying to find out what an electron looks like, but the best thing that they can find about an electron is that the electron is like the sun. It's a light. But it's so minute and so small, it's light, and what it does, it just vibrates, it dances. And that's the best that they can do. And they haven't got anything to go into that, to go deeper into that. But that's pretty deep now. That's into the quartz. And so they found that the electron appears to be just a tiny piece of light vibrating. So it's energy. Actually, I would just call it energy in motion. And so the first time that we see this word, and I want you to look with me in Genesis chapter 2. Just flip over there, Genesis chapter 2. The first time that we see this particular word is in Genesis chapter 2, and it's in verse 22. Everybody there with me? Genesis 2 and 22, and I'll show it to you. It says, "And the rib which the Lord God had taken from the man," this is the first time this word man, in the English, this is the 12th time the word man has appeared. However, the word man in Genesis 1 and 2 up to this time was made up of these glyphs right here. The Aleph, the Dalit, and the final Mem. The Aleph, the Dalit, and the final Mem. Mem has a 600 value. The Dalit has a 4 value. And this has a 1. 64 is 10, 11. Is that right? 6, 4, 10, 11. 11, which equals 2. 2. 1, 2. Okay? The two circles. That's the atom. So what does that represent? Duality. It's made up of three characters, just exactly like a cell. Same thing. A cell's made up of three characters: protons, neutrons, and electrons. Everything breaks down into and so you see this commonly thing. So when I use gematria and take the value of something, break it down, it can give you a better understanding if you know the first 9 glyphs of the Hebrew alphabet. If you memorize them and you know what each one stands for, then it gives you a better idea of how that word is associated. Like for the word, that's called Adam in Hebrew, Aleph, Dalet, Mem, Adam, which we call it Adam, Adam, and its value is 2. So it represents the Beth, the house, the body, the dual body. And so there's nothing wrong with the dual body, but it needs balance. It needs something to pull it together. Otherwise, it's divided. You're a house divided against yourself. And what did Jesus say about that? Matthew 14. He said, if a house is divided against itself, it cannot stand. So that's what we grapple with most of the time and not even realize that that's where we're at. We don't know that's where we're at. And so we grapple with that. Most people do. They grapple with this dualistic, right, left, whatever. And everybody does that. I'm not any different than you. Everybody does that, okay? And so we all have to do that. Well, here's the first place that we see this word, man, except this time, this word man is spelled this way. It's not spelled this way. It's spelled Aleph, Shin, Hey. Again, 3 characters. This one has a 5 value. This one has a 300 value. This one has a 1 value. So you have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that gives this one, 9 is the magic number. You know, 9, you can do all kinds of mathematical stuff with 9. It's just unheard of what you can do with that. But yet this word is called Eesh. Eesh. And this word, Eesh in Hebrew, is the word that's used for man. And so I had the numbers of these words somewhere. I don't know where I wrote them down at. I may not have even brought it. Maybe on another notepad in yonder. Probably is. But I wrote the numbers of this word, Eesh. Up until Genesis 18, the word Adam and the word Eesh is back and forth after it's introduced right here in verse 22. In other words, it's used back and forth. And from Genesis chapter 19 throughout the next 10 books in the Bible, the only word that's used to describe man is this word, Eesh. In other words, the word Adam is not even used hardly at all. I mean, I'm talking about hundreds of times that this word, Eesh, is used over and over and over. Now, the root of this word, in other words, what this word comes from, is this Hebrew word. And that Hebrew word is called Esh. And that is Aleph Shin, and it's the word for fire, where light comes from. So this word Eesh actually means fire. That's what it means. It means the energy of God. And this is God right here. We could call that God, or we can call it light, L-I-G-H-T, or we can call it fire, F-I-R-E. And so it deposits itself in the male. It deposits itself here in the masculine in the form of an emanation. So everybody, male or female, sexually, has this male and female. In other words, you women have a male side of you, and that male side of you is where this deposit of light is deposited in you, and it's deposited in you, emanation, it comes out of the source into your being as a seed. And that seed is a part of your male brain. And that seed, as a part of your male brain, can transmit itself over into the female aspect of you, which is the next word that we see right here. The first time we even see this word, woman. From man, that's not Adam, that's Eesh, made he woman. And that's Eeshah. They add a hey, they add a H to the end of that name. And so every place that you see the word woman from here on, it's the Hebrew word Eshah. And it actually means the womb of fire. Or it is the womb that incubates the seed, which is the word that manifests whatever manifests in your life. I mean, that's just how we work. This is spiritual, physical manifestation 101. And it takes a lot of, you have to contemplate, you have to think, you have to muse on this to become to the place that you really begin to own that. Now, the thing about this light, it just comes forth in what you do with it and how you interpret it, or how you transfer it from your masculine to your feminine. It's totally up to you, and God's not biased on how you do it. In other words, God's not sitting there saying, I didn't mean to say it that way. You took it that way, and that's the way you interpret it. No, God's not doing that. God is empowering it to manifest it ever how you choose. And many times, that's not what you want. Or me. I manifest it because I've drawn it through all of these different angles or thoughts. Okay? So you kind of follow me with all of that? All right. Let me read you my notes here that I made this morning. Man is mentioned 12 times in chapter 1 and chapter 2 till we get to verse 22 like that. In other words, this word man, Aleph, Daleth, Mem, Adam. But from here, it interchanges, and the man becomes Esh or Adam, until you get to Genesis 19, and all of a sudden, everything from Genesis 19 starts to become Esh. I have a whole teaching on that, because there are three words. Yeah, okay, I'm not sure I didn't have 4 fingers. 3 words that's translated for the English word man. And that is the word Adam, that's the word Esh, and that is the word Enosh. All 3 of those words are translated for the one English word man, and none of the 3 of them mean the same thing. Now, it's very confusing to start with until you can begin to dissect and assimilate certain principles in your mind, and you begin to realize it's really not that confusing at all. You begin to see more about who you are, because we don't know who we are. We got to know who we are. And the whole thing about it is you got to know who you are. Then if you don't know who you are, you can't produce what you really desire. Right? But when you begin to know who you are, you can produce what you really desire. So these two Hebrew words right here, Esh and Eshah, that's the word for woman. It's this same identical word right here. Aleph, Shin, Hey. That's the one that's for man. And then they add another glyph to call it woman, or Eshah. Okay, go with me now to the book of Exodus. This gets a little more complicated. Hopefully I can keep it to where I can keep it simple. I won't try to keep it as simple as I can, but it confirms itself and reconfirms itself and then reconfirms itself, so that I'm praying that after it's been reconfirmed time and time again, you begin to see and say, oh, I can see that. So if you don't see clearly now, I pray that you will here in just a minute, okay? Exodus chapter 25 and verse 40. Exodus 25 and verse 40. Everybody found that? It says, this is what the instructions to Moses from the space, or the source, we call that God. Verse 40 says, and look that thou make after the pattern. You see the word pattern? That word pattern is tabnith. And it's spelt with the tov, the beth, the non, the hey, and the tov. And if I put that Hebrew word on the board and total that Hebrew word out in gematria, it will come up to the value of that, 7. And so every time we see that, we have to put the stick man on the board, because it is a picture of me and you. And we have to try to do our best to understand that the 7, the complete number, perfect number, always represents you and me. It always does. So when I take that word pattern in Hebrew, tabnith, and I reduce it down in gematria, it comes up to the value of 7. And he says, so the pattern, now I want you to hear what I'm saying in that. When I'm talking about the pattern, he's looking into the stars, is what he's doing. He's up on the mount. Well, it says, well, let's just read it right here for the pattern which was shown you where? It's shown you in the mountain. The word mountain is hay, rash. Rash has a 200 value. Hay has a 5 value. 2 and 5 is 7. So see, the mountain and the pattern both represent you. You see, you're the mountain that God went up on. You're the pattern that God began to show. This confirms itself in Scripture over and over and over. You are the temple, the tabernacle, the house that God chooses to live inside. And that's not something in the future. That's not something that happens at a special moment. You know, when the preacher gets you to feel so sorry for yourself and condemns you and beats you up real bad. Oh God, I need to get saved. No, you're born that way. You're born that way. You die that way. You never ever are not that way. Now, how you live and what you do with your life is completely up to you, and God's not upset about it. Frankly, God's not a bit concerned about it. God doesn't lose any at all. Isaiah tells us that very clearly. God loses nothing and no one. Oh, well, I thought a bunch of them died and went to hell and burned forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. No, that's what religion told you. Religion told us that to condemn us, to beat us up, and to try to keep us suppressed and under their manipulation and under their control. And so when he's talking to us about this mountain, this word har, that's what this Hebrew word is, har, and actually the word means luminous. In other words, light. You are a light vessel. That's what it tells you. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, it says, and God formed you out of the dust. The word dust doesn't mean the particles of dirt and ground. Actually, the word afar, you hear that har, you hear that r? That always refers to light or fire. You are particles of light. And now biological science proves that very fact, that you are at the lowest level of a cell, you are made up of light. Electron, light, that's exactly what you are. So we are a light vessel. So I want you to go with me now to Genesis chapter 11. Genesis chapter 11, and this was Moses over here in Exodus. And I want you to go over here with Genesis chapter 11 with me, and let's look at Abraham. We're familiar with these characters. And again, they're pictures. They are allegorical, symbolic characters. Chapter 11, look at verse 31. And Terah took Abraham his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, and his son's Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur. The word Ur in Hebrew is exactly the same word in Genesis 1:3 for light. It's the same word. Ur is from the Hebrew word or, which means light. Now I want you to hear what's going on. This is beautiful when you can see it. So they went from light of the Chaldees. This word Chaldees actually in Hebrew is the Hebrew word kesdi. And the word actually means a savant, or it means an astarology. Astrology. That's what the word means. So they went from the light of astrology. You have to understand this now. You see, astrology, a-star-ology, just simply means the study of the stars. Or you could say it this way, the study of light. Well, do you not recognize and realize that if you study light, you're studying God? Because God is light. God's not a man. God is light. And so as you and I begin to realize that, and actually this word, Chaldean, it does mean the same thing that you read about in Matthew chapter 2, verse 1, when it says, and the wise men came. You remember the 3 wise men? All you got to do is look up the word wise men. Do you know what it says that they are? It says that they are magi's. Who were magi's? Magi's were astrologers. They were not Hebrew holy people that were coming to announce, hey y'all, here's Jesus, the star in the sky. That's not. They were magi's. They were studiers of the stars. They knew how to read the signs in the stars. And this is exactly what this word is saying. So they came from the light of the Chaldee, and then he said, I want you to see this next phrase. Go, he said, to go into. That word go into is the Hebrew word, le'ek le'on. Oh my God, just please get this. It says go into yourself. That's what the word le'ek le'on, go into yourself. It's in yourself. It's the only place you're going to find the answer, because if you're struggling between your duality, your male and your female, you have to go to the place of balance, and the place of balance is within you. It's your source. It's the space. It's God. You go in there and you solve your problems. You go in there, you get your answers. That's the only place you're going to get them. And what does that require? Well, yeah, it does require discipline. Yeah, it does require getting quiet. Yeah, it does require seeking. And that's the only place that you and I can go to find the answer to the things that we long for in life. We're looking for things everywhere else, but the things that we look for are within us. It's always been within us. It'll always be within us. And within you is where you're going to find it. That's what he's saying right here. This light of astrology resides within you. Within your very being. You go into the stick man. He's got the male, he's got the female, but he's got the center column right down through here. The heart, the core. The word heart right here, the word heart actually is not referring to the cardia, the pumper that pushes blood through your body. The word heart is actually referring to the entire core of your being. If you look at the heart of a tree, you cut the tree down at the bottom, and you find the heart, and then you trim the top out of that tree, you'll find the heart. Why? Because the heart runs up the center of it continuously. Your heart is not the thing that's pumping blood. Your heart is the center, the core of your being that goes from your sex organ to your pineal gland. That's where God is at. That's where the source is at. That's where your answer is at. It's within your heart. And that's a place that every one of us, we must needs go there if we want to get the answers to the things that we are looking for. So you have to get within yourself. Now I want to read you some stuff from this little book that's got some a lot of pages that are just styrofoam. You know what I mean when I say styrofoam?
Filler.
They ain't worth a crap for nothing. But you know, if you're looking for gold, you got to dig through a lot of styrofoam to get it. And that's where people get frustrated, or that's where people give up. I ain't got nothing. I ain't found nothing. That's because you just haven't sought. Just keep seeking, you'll find. I mean, that's not my words. That's Jesus' word, okay? Seek, you shall find. Seek just simply means to continue to look. Continue to knock. Just keep digging. Keep looking. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. You know what I'm saying? Man is a mystery, shrouded in a mystery, which we call the universe. And this mystery leads us to yet a deeper mystery, which we call God, or the unknowable. All is a threefold wonder. Listen, all is a threefold wonder. Down to the least little atom. Down to the least quartz. And we ain't got no smaller than that. It's still a mystery. They look at it and it's still a wonder. It's a threefold wonder. A relationship between God, man, and the universe. This universe comes from some unknown source and winds its way towards some unknown end. And I like that. In other words, they don't know when it started and they don't know when it's going to end. They ain't got a clue. So it's just a great big question mark. Just a big question mark. And as it comes from, and he just has a question mark there. Well, nobody has a clue where in the world it comes from. And it appears to be proceeding towards, he has another question mark there. Because where's it going? Nobody has any idea, don't know where it's going. And is in itself, and he has another big question mark, because what is it? What is itself? Its nature, its form, and its powers can only be described. Now I like this, listen to this real closely. Its nature, its form, and its powers can only be described by means of symbols. That is, in pictures which in themselves are no more real than the photograph is real when compared to the thing it represents. Now, I think that's a very good, profound statement. That is a statement that symbolizes the entire book you got in your lap called the Bible. Because that's all it is. It's a book of pictures and symbols. It's not a book of real events. It's not a book of real people. It's a book of pictures and events. And if we could see it that way, it would help us out greatly. As symbols are but thoughts set forth in pictorial form which possesses no activity, we conclude that the world in which we live and which in fact is shadowed forth by our thoughts is no more than one infinite thought form, a form which exists, parentheses, how is beyond our understanding in God. It exists in God, or the unknowable, and which finds its activity in our thoughts by being fragmented by our finite minds. It finds its activity in our thoughts. In other words, it is light, because that's what God is, light, fire, and it's emanating into our male side of our brain as a thought. And then that thought is transferred into the female side, into the Eshha side of our brain, which is called the womb of fire, or the womb for the thought. In other words, to produce or to bring forth. And thank God it don't bring forth a child every time. Some falls by the wayside, some choked by the weeds, some this, that, and the other. Thank God for that. Aren't you glad? Have you ever had thoughts and did things that you said, I hope that don't come to pass? Amen. That was a good time to say it. Yes. To us, our thought would be impossible without light, and light would be incomprehensible without darkness. Just as heat is incomprehensible without cold, to us, in its ultimate form, the universe is light. It is that which opens the mind of the thinker, which, however, cannot comprehend the existence of light without the lack of light. This light reveals to us a universe of 4 dimensions, 4 worlds in one manifestation of space. So we've gone now, and what happens is we go now from the 3, everything that is, everything that was, everything that is, and everything that will be comes from the 3. So that's where the whole idea of a Trinity comes from. It's a 3 in 1. And I remember, when I first started my journey, goodness, back in the mid-70s, and I didn't know anything. In my mid-20s, ignorant, never had read the Bible, didn't know anything about the Bible, and they kept telling me this 3-in-1, and that was the most confusing thing to me that they ever could try. And I said, okay, then you got this guy that lived 2,000 years ago, and you're trying to tell me that now he's going to live inside me. How's somebody else going to get inside me? I grapple with that. Maybe y'all never did. Y'all might just say, oh yeah, I really had a hard time with that. I couldn't figure that one out. And then they started trying to tell me, no, this 1 is 3. And that even got more confusing. Now, if they'd have broke it down in simple terms like this to realize that I am dual in my nature, and I have this centering ability that can pull the two together and balance them and harmonize them so that the two actually become 3 and now they're 1. Did y'all follow all of that? The 2 now, because you have another one that gives it 3, now it's 1. And that's the picture of all of us. That's the manifestation of everyone. And now he's saying this all came from 4. And it does. It came from the 4, and the 4 are this: fire, earth, air, and water. And they are actually mentioned in Genesis chapter 2. I'll just put it right here. 2:4 in one word. And that word is called JHVH. And it's not even really a word, it is a formula. It is a formula of how to create anything out of these 4 elements, out of these 4 carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen: fire, earth, air, and water. And that word is translated for the word Lord, L-O-R-D. And we took that word Lord and we translated that word for Jesus, or Jehovah, and made it human. And it never was human. It's always been a formula. It's always been the instrument to show how everything on this earth manifests and materializes itself. And with that, I want you to go with me to the book of Ezekiel. Chapter 1, Ezekiel chapter 1. Ezekiel chapter 1. Now last week, we talked about the mercy seat and the pattern of the temple. God said, build it this way. And it was just a pattern that God was showing a pattern. And that pattern, of course, is this right here. I call it the stick man. It's the human body. The body is the pattern. The body is the temple. And so last week we talked about the cherubims. And the cherubim, the word cherubim, in religion, we have taken that word and we have added an idea, a concept with it that really took us away from the word. The word cherubim, or karub, it comes from the Hebrew karub. It means thoughts. It means imaginary thoughts, or it means the ability to have an imagination. How many of you have one? How does yours work? Pretty good. Mine works overtime a lot of times. I don't know about yours. You ever had yours get to wake thinking on something and then the damn thing won't quit? It just goes on and on and on like a broken record? Shut up! Sometimes you can't even get it to shut up. Yeah, you have that tremendous ability. Well, in Genesis chapter 3, at the very end of the chapter, it says, and that's the first place you see the word karub, it says, and God placed at the end of the garden. Well, what is the garden? In religion, they told you it is a special place somewhere over there in the Middle East that they have not ever been able to find, where there's 4 rivers that run together, and when you look at your body, you realize your body is the place where these 4 rivers run, and that your body is the Garden of Eden. The word Eden means time. Your body is the word, garden is the place where God has deposited Himself in time. Now the timeless has become of its own fruition limited to time when it's unlimited. Now, isn't that a conundrum? Now that's all powerful has reduced itself to limitations in that's not powerful, i.e. the physical body. Now isn't that a conundrum? That's the story of all of us. And God says He placed these cherub, and they translated now the King James Bible as though they were flaming swords. And then they draw pictures of it for us so that we could clearly see it. And they were these, what we call angelic beings, had these swords, and these swords were, you've seen these people twirl things that's got fire, and that's how we see these guys, they just swinging these swords back, saying, now y'all get back, we'll burn the hell out of you if you come any closer. That's what you thought. That's not at all what it said in Hebrew. Actually, the word cherub means your ability to imagine a thing. In other words, how do your imaginations come? They come from the source of fire. Light, which is God. So they come from this place, in this place of fire. God, when you get your thinking right, when we get our thoughts fine-tuned, we can hear what God thinks. Tells us very clearly in the book of Isaiah, your thoughts are my thoughts. It never did say, don't think the way I think. It never said that. Actually, it's saying just exactly the opposite. It's saying, think the way I think. I think through you. We didn't know that. Nobody ever told us that. Think the way God thinks. Now, look at this in Ezekiel. Genesis 3:1 is the first time we see this Hebrew word for cherubim. The word actually means imaginary thoughts. They're also found above the mercy seat. There are two of them. There are two. You got the picture now? You remember they got their angels spread over the mercy seat. There are two of them. Of course there are two of them. Where are they at? They're centered on one lid called the mercy seat, or in other words, God, the center that brings these thoughts together. The three in one, okay? The balance of the powers. It's always there. Always. You'll see it everywhere. You'll see it in all of the mythologies. It's just there everywhere. The cherubs. These are the word thoughts. These are created by the different angles that the sun, the word angle and the word angel are the exact same word. So you have 12 angels, you have 12 angles that the sun actually hits the earth with creative power. 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 12, 12 to 2, etc., etc., etc. And so that you have from 6 to 8 we call sunrise. That you have from 6 to 8 we call sunset. Sun didn't go anywhere. Earth is just turning. So you still got sunlight, fire at night, even though it's shadowed, shaded. It's still there. It is. There's still light in darkness. That's where it hides itself. So you have all of these cherub, these angels, etc. In other words, abilities to think. And right here in Ezekiel, in the book of Ezekiel, is all about what I'm talking about. It's all about this story. The book of Revelation is all about this that I'm talking about. It's all about the balance of the power. And the only way you can balance the power is you have to realize the power is within you. It's in your ability to create. It's in your ability to bring this thought here when it's gone way out there like a wild stag. Or this thought over here when it's gone way out there. It's you that bring it in. And it's only done this way, through discipline and through knowledge. That's how you do it. Oh, I don't get in that discipline stuff. That requires something of you. That's the only way you're going to get it. Well, I'm not the disciplined type. Well, the book of Ezekiel is about man. It is about this character right here, Adam. And this character right here, Adam, comes from this character right here called the Lord or Jehovah. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. All they do is put vowel points in it to make a word. The word was just throwing us way off track. Fire, earth, air, and water. Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 5, it says, "And out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was their appearance, and they had the likeness of a man." Look at this. Now it's very confusing when you read it if you're not looking at it and understanding certain patterns, certain things that it's referring to. It's very confusing. I'll do it with this little circle right here. That's the most ancient symbol that there is, a circle with a cross in the middle of it, which represents the eternal or timeless or endless. The circle, which has no beginning and no end, it's referring to I.e. the source, God, ether, power, etc. And then you put the cross, which represents the vertical and the horizontal, that represents matter. So anytime that you see a cross, ancient, very ancient symbols. Jesus hanging on a cross is a very ancient symbol. A man hanging on a cross, you can go back into Egyptian hieroglyphs and find men hanging on crosses, because every one of us are, male and female, hung on the cross of matter. When I stick my arms out on each side and my legs, my vertical and horizontal part, that's exactly, it's talking about God manifest material, in materiality, in physicality. That's what it means. That's what it means, man hung on a cross. And again, you got Jesus between 2 thieves. Again, 3 in 1. Representing that that's pulling you this or that that's pulling that. All you need is the balance. There wasn't anything wrong with either one of them. This and wants redemption. All this and don't. Yeah, that's the story of us. Verse 6, "And everyone had 4 faces, and everyone had 4 wings. And their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of the feet of calf's foot, and they sparkled like the color of varnished brass. And they had the hands of a man under their wings on the 4 sides, and the 4 had their faces and their wings. Their wings were joined one to another." Now Dake, I mentioned this last week, I studied under Dake, and Dake actually draws a picture of this as a real manifest creature. You're talking about a confusing mess. I'm going to tell you right now, it is the most confusing thing. You got 4 heads, they're going in all directions. Oh, which way y'all going to go? Oh, we don't know. This won't go that way, that won't go that way. Every one of you, this won't go straight that way, this won't go straight that. And I'm going to tell you, it's pulling itself off to pieces. It is ridiculous. I mean, you're talking about confusion, mass confusion. But people buy that, go to the book of Revelation. Oh my God, it's a beast. Yeah, that's you.
Yeah, it is.
You are. This is the number of the beast. 666, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen. 666, it's the number of man. That's what he tells you right there. Book of Revelation tells you, it's the number of man. It's not the number of an Antichrist. It's not the number of a devil. It's not the number of Lucifer. It's the number of man. And that's the chemical makeup. And when we look at the table, we begin to realize it is the makeup of you and me. The ingredients that we put together. Verse 9, and their wings were joined one to another, and they turned not when they went. They went every one of them straight forward. My little illustration I gave last week, hopefully that's sticking in you real good. Okay. So they had something stuck straight up. They're going straight forward.
Yeehaw!
Verse 10, it says, "And for the likeness of their faces they 4 had the face of a man, the face of a lion." I do it like this. This is man. This is the 4 faces. This is the lion. This is the eagle. And this is the ox. Now all of them characters fit in the astrological wheel, and they all represent that this is the 1 and 4. And actually this is a picture of this movement between the earth rotating and the sun energizing what's here creates everything that's on this planet that lives. The sun does that, the light does that, the earth does that. It creates all of these faces. The cherubims are actually the faces of the four thoughts that you have. These four thoughts are birthed out of these four astrological modalities right here. And every one of us, I don't care who you are, I don't care when you was born, I don't care what your birth sign is, it really doesn't matter. We are infected, we are affected, and we are affected by every one of these characters. Period. Doesn't matter. Why? Because the sun is moving right now, and right now it's up here close to probably, it's up here right around Gemini, Cancer, somewhere. It's right there. Whatever, I don't know what time it is now, but it's after 12, 12:30. So it's right along in here. It's right, and so the energy that's coming to you and me, the energy that's coming to me right now is from Gemini, the twins, and moving into Cancer, the lungs. And it's affecting every one of you the same way. And so what our work, the great work is this. And everything about what I teach and what all of the spiritual exercises taught is about the great work. That Paul said, work out your own, the word salvation, solitary, your own wholeness, your own completeness of being. I mean, this is what we are, this is the path. This is the path. And each one of us are called to walk our own path. Walk you in your own path. I can't walk it for you. Nobody else can walk it for you. But the four faces, the four thoughts, the four faces, the four cherubims, the four thoughts that we have to deal with that are energized by these four astrological characters. We want to talk about that. We want to move into that a little bit more because we'll take it into the book of Revelation and look at it a little bit deeper and see what we can extract from it. Okay? I wanted to read something to you out of this big old book right here, and I skipped over it, but I would like to read it to you. I don't even know what page it was on. Let's see if I can't find this right here. Yeah, here we are. When I was talking about the of the Chaldees, and he said, I want you to go into Canaan. That's where he said, y'all remember that? Remember that song, Canaan land, my home in glory? Something like that. Bruce, you remember it, you can sing it. I don't know how to do it. Yeah, that was a really good one. That gets you all whining and crying on that. Y'all remember that song? Canaan. I want you to just hear the spiritual side meaning of this word, and actually the word Canaan means realized nothingness or material existence. That's the meaning of it. And the metaphysics behind that is Canaan means the lowland, or in other words, it's referring to your body. So if you're going to Canaan land, you're actually going into your body. That's where Canaan land is. They thought, oh, it's over in the Middle East. Well, they may have named the place over in the Middle East Canaan or Canaan land, but no, Canaan land or Canaan is your body. It's your physical body. In order to redeem the body, man must enter with his spiritual thoughts into his organism and teach it the saving truth. Did you hear that? That's for every one of us. That's the work. That's the great work. Entering into your own core, your own center, your own God-like, from your pineal gland all the way down to your sex organ. Enter, le'ek leon. Enter into yourself. That's where you find it. And I meant to read you that. I want you to just hear that. And there's quite a bit more that he goes into with that. So, okay. Is that clear?